And so the hours of the car business can be unforgiving at times, but rewarding in other ways for sure.
Welcome to the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast, the #1 resource for automotive sales professionals, managers, and owners to learn how to make money, accumulate wealth, and to all out ball out in the auto industry. And now your hosts, Sean V. Bradley and L.A. Williams.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is L.A. Williams, and I'm here live on the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast. And the guest I have for you today, man, I'm extremely excited to spend time with him. We spent some time in person recently. He was at the Internet Sales 20 group. That was cool. I was at his dealership for 3 days working with his team, and he and I spent a lot of time together. It was just great. And so now he's joining us for the podcast. So I'm super excited. This gentleman, I don't even know if he knows this, but he was just chosen to be representation of on Dealer Magazine. He's a Dealer of the Month, man. So I'm super duper excited for him. He's going to be on the cover of Dealer Magazine. This is just absolutely the best. So without further ado, let me bring to the microphone my man, Danny Zaslavsky. What's happening, Danny?
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm excellent, man. Super excited to have you on. Man, so I know, like I said, we spent a lot of time, man, you know what's crazy? Let's have a conversation about this because we were actually on Facebook. A lot of people may have seen the video of us driving in the Vanderhall. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Not us driving, you driving.
It was me. Okay.
You were driving, man.
So Danny let me drive the Vanderhall. That was phenomenal. I don't know if we're supposed to tell this part of the story too, but he, had the Tesla that's, that drives itself. I had my hand on the steering wheel. It's all moving by itself. I'm like, this stuff is awesome. I can't wait for self-driving cars. I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, it's coming. It's here, right? But it's just becoming more and more of our everyday life.
100%. All right, cool. So just talk to the people about your story. I mean, I know you've been in the automotive industry since seems like forever. Tell the people how you got started, just your entire background. I know it's still unfolding, but let's talk about the beginning of it.
Yeah. I appreciate you say it's still unfolding because that's absolutely the case. I'm a 35-year-old guy, but I started in the auto industry when I was 14. My dad is an immigrant. So is my mom, but they came over from Ukraine in 1979 and had a shoe repair business. He was a cobbler, and right up the street from his business was a small car dealership. And back then it used to be the old Merriam Gas building, but it was converted into 3 businesses, a small car lot, had about a dozen cars on it, auto repair facility, and a glass shop. And the small car lot was started by a guy named Josh. And one day my dad actually walked up the hill and started shopping for cars up there and ended up buying a car from Josh, but loved cars and said, "Hey, can I come up here and sell some cars for you?" And Josh said, "Sure." And so he came up there and started selling some cars, and they built a friendship and respect for each other and quickly figured out that selling cars wasn't necessarily the issue. It was buying cars. It was buying them right. It was buying the right inventory. And so my dad took some really cool steps to solve that problem. And from that, Country Hill Motors was really born.
So you got started, you were 14. What did they have you doing at 14 years old?
Everything. I was washing cars. I was vacuuming cars. I was moving around the lot. I learned to drive there. The back lot was a gravel lot, and so I learned to drive in an old Chevy Nova with no passenger door and no reverse, and was a stick shift. And so I'd drive in circles and then drive up on a hill, roll backwards, and go in another circle. And I think I pissed off the neighbors because I was constantly drumming up dust from the gravel lot. But right. I learned to drive back there. But my dad took me through the body shop and through service and quickly learned that I wasn't any good at either. But when I got over to the sales side, I really found my niche.
Nice.
Specifically when I was given the opportunity to focus on our brand and our marketing and our message and how that related to process, how we were giving our consumers that experience. Because what we figured out is we were selling $3,000 to $12,000 price range cars, right? So we weren't selling $25,000, $30,000 cars. We were selling $5,000 Toyota Corollas. It was like one of our, bread and butter cars we were selling. And we saw that, these customers often didn't have another car in the driveway. So this car they were buying was really important to them. They were depending on it. And so we wanted to give them a $30,000 experience.
Nice.
And the way we did that was by making sure that we reconditioned the car properly, that we gave them a really good warranty, that we treated them with respect and kindness and integrity, because word of mouth was the way that we did advertising back then.
Wow. That's some phenomenal stuff, man, because so many people don't realize that the car is not king, right? It's so much more than that. So that's beautiful stuff. So, all right. So you got into the sales aspect of it. So when you were like the car salesman, what did that mean for you? Because, most of us, most kids get a job, at McDonald's or something like that, or, selling candy at 14, 15 years old. But you were selling cars. So what did that do for you financially? Kind of let's talk about your senior year. Maybe you're in high school. I don't know. Just give me a story like that.
Yes. So, I worked part-time at the time because I was, in school and then coming over to the car lot to work. But when I started selling cars, it was really, full-time in the summers in high school and before I went off to college. Just to tell you, if it gives you any idea of how important the car business has been to me, I went off to college because I'm a son of immigrant parents and they really wanted to be a doctor. But I went off to college, to KU, got a human biology minor in chemistry, but ended up, sticking with the family business because I loved it so much. And turns out I'm afraid of blood. How about that for?
They want you to be a doctor.
Right. So came back to the car business, but, you only know what you know when you know it. And I had some really great mentors, other sales people that were dedicated to honing their craft, managers that were within our organization that took prospecting and referrals seriously and had a foundation, a desire to serve. And that really left a mark on me because I try to show up with integrity in all ways, and you can't fake that. And I saw the people that came and went that maybe didn't have the integrity that I aspired to have. And so I saw what other people did and picked up on the things that I wanted to embody and then continue to insert those in my process. And at some point, Josh, my dad's business partner, called it the Danny Factory because, customers would walk in and they would go through the Danny Factory because I kept adding process to my own assembly line, right? I knew the objections that the customers would have. And so I inserted answers throughout my process with them of where did the car come from? What did we do to the car? Try to anticipate that consumer's need so that by the time we got down to closing the deal or price, it wasn't even a question. It was just assuming the sale.
Yeah. And it's so interesting you say that because when we were at the dealership, we were doing some role plays and kind of just talking a little bit about some of that. And now that you say what you're saying, I hear those exact objections being overcome in just your plain conversation, right? So just talking about how, how long you might have had the car and, where it came from and different things that you did to it. It just comes out in plain conversation. So I think that's pretty powerful. So tell us about, because obviously we're talking to the Millionaire Car Salesman listeners, and they want to know, what was that like for you from a financial standpoint? Of course, in order to make money, I always say that, dollars are certificates of servitude, right? The more dollars you have, it's probably because you served lots of people. If you don't have them, it's probably because you're not serving anybody. And so, so talk about, the financial aspect. What was that like for you? Because I don't know if you came from like where it's extreme wealth already from the very beginning, like you never knew what it was like to kind of struggle, or tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So two things. Let me preface this. I like what you said about certificates. The other thing I guess I'll add to that is I've learned that money only exchanges hands when problems are solved. So, when you think about what problem are you solving, and if it's your job, how are you charging for it? There's certainly a sense of pride with that, right? There's no shame in making money,
right?
And especially if you're doing a good job. But no, I grew up poor. My parents were immigrants, came over with nothing in the early 70s, and built a business here in Kansas City. And so we became, like, I would say, middle class, late high school, early college for me. But I certainly worked all the hours from 9 in the morning till 8:30 or 9 at night, in weekends, and had and at the time we were open on Sundays, and I would get a day off during the week. And so the hours of the car business can be unforgiving at times, but rewarding in other ways for sure. But that gave me the experience to understand what it takes to succeed.
Nice. And see, here's what I'm going to actually say, something that can be very edgy. I actually heard a gentleman say this before, and just so everybody knows, I am of African-American descent, right? And so what he said, man, I don't necessarily want black people in my business. He's like, I don't necessarily want white people in my business. I like having immigrants in my business because they understand the value of work ethic, right? So these are obviously general statements. We're not, from a stereotypical standpoint. But the challenge with people who kind of grow up in a free environment, a free country, is that they're not as close to the struggle as some other people. And so what they do is they get this sense of entitlement. They get this sense of, oh, I'm just doing my job, I work 9 to 5, or whatever the case may be. No, you got to do whatever it takes. You have to put in, whether it's going to be long hours, then it's long hours. If it's going to be blood, sweat, and tears, then it's going to be blood, sweat, and tears. The bottom line is it can't matter. Right? It's not supposed to matter what it takes in order to win. You're just supposed to win. So I like what you just said with that. I thought that was beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah. And so I guess another way to say that is diversity and inclusion are things that are kind of talked about a lot nowadays. And I think it's great. But where that comes from for me is if you have the same people around the table, you're going to have the same ideas. And so you've got to get different people around the table. And I agree with you. I think it can be said that people that are born in this country and grow up in this country see opportunity all around them and aren't as willing or able to grab onto that opportunity like immigrants are when they come in here and all of a sudden see the opportunity that they didn't have before and grab on and don't let go and work really hard to achieve it. So, and that was my parents, because in Ukraine and in Russia, when they were growing up, their parents, no matter how hard they worked, weren't able to achieve the success that they could here, simply because of the country that they were born into. So,
right. Yeah, man,
I'm really grateful to be here.
It's super deep, man. It's deep. All right, so talk about this. What are some of the keys and success to making money in the automotive industry? If I'm, brand new, I just got in the industry, I'm, let's say 25 years old, and I'm like, man, I really want to make money. I want to do something like what he did. I want to grow from being wherever I am into being in that wealthy crowd. What would I have to do?
Well, so I'm going to challenge you to think about it a little bit differently for a second. Chasing money is cool, it's noble, but I don't know that you'll necessarily, at least for me, I'm driven by success, and I believe money follows. I think money is a side effect of success. And some of the language I'm going to share with you, I've picked up along the way that matches with how I feel. Just know I haven't always had the language, right, to be able to describe this. But one I will tell you is I think different is better than better. You can chase better your whole life, but I think different is better than better. And so don't be afraid to be different. Don't be afraid to be different in the way you market yourself, in the way you brand yourself, in the way that you stand out, in the way your business stands out. I mean, we were a $3,000 to $12,000 price range car dealership for 20 plus years, and that made us stand out. So we didn't have to compete with the CarMaxes of the world and their cars. We took pictures with a guy standing in front of our cars and waving, so that in Auto Trader magazine at the time, you would see us on every page, and people started imitating us. And right, imitation is the highest form of flattery. So we started doing all these things to be different, to stand out, because we wanted to call the attention to us. And then once we captured the customer, that's when our values came into play. That's when our integrity got to shine, and that's where we got to win the customer. And then that's once we sold the car is actually when that relationship really began, because then we could work with them to get referrals and repeat business and grow our book of business.
Man, I love that. That's going to get the cha-ching sound, because different is better than better. And then I like what you added to that, because people, let's not think that, different for the sake of different is better than better. No, different for the sake of being authentic is what's better than better, right? So there's a gentleman who sold cars. He did a walk around of his own vehicle, or it was his old, beat up 94 truck or something like that. And he's like, yeah, man, you got to have the rips in the seats. I mean, that it sold me. I wanted an old truck because he was selling, it was him, his personality. And that's what I absolutely love. So that is beautiful stuff. When you talk
Thank
about,
you. Thank you.
Authentic. Yeah. So, all right. So we have a plethora of different type of listeners. We got salespeople. We have managers. Let's say I just became a manager in the automotive industry, and, I want to be successful in the same rate. I want to make money, right? So I want to do those things. How do I do that? Is there anything in particular that you would recommend I do with my team? I don't know. Break that down to me.
Yep. So, I'd rather, if it's all right with you, LA, I'd rather share how we do it.
Yes,
and then
absolutely.
people can take from that.
Listen, just so you know, this is perfect, right? So the questions that I ask are kind of just like general questions, but the whole purpose of this podcast is for our guests to take it in whichever direction they like. So people need to hear exactly what you want to share. So you never have to ask permission. Just do it.
Okay, cool. Well, let me tell you what we do, and then people can take from it what they want. So if we look at it as a house, right, and at the bottom of that house is the foundation. The foundation is our values. And so our values are, and we've had to define these, invest in our team. And so what does that mean? Part of that is working with dealer synergy. It is doing training. It is making sure that pay plans reflect what we actually motivate. It is to make sure that managers are also able and willing to get up and help and train and engage, not just reprimand. Because I'm not interested in motivating by fear. I'm interested in motivating by success. And that affects culture. So these are things that may come out as flowery language, but in the store, it's a daily practice. It is a daily practice. The second thing is serving our customers with integrity. We're in a industry that has a lot of stigma, and some would say, well, we have nothing to prove. We're just going to do good business. I would say that we do have something to prove. And that's another way we can be different, because we serve our customers with integrity. One of the ways we do that is we allocate dollars every single month for goodwill. And so our warranty certainly is really strong and covers a lot. But there are things like a starter or an alternator that 6 months down the line may go bad. We most often will just cover it because it's the right thing to do, and we want to give the consumer a good experience. And we know that that's the cost of referral business. And so making sure that the consumer continues to have a good experience with us is really important. And so we do that. We serve our customers. And quite frankly, that's part of that is with the training and making sure that the consumer knows when they come to us, they can talk to our salesperson, talk to our manager, talk to our title clerk, talk to our internet sales coordinator, and get the same experience and get the answers that they need. The third way is giving back to the community that's given so much to us. So we decided early on that we wanted to build our brand to be bigger than just selling cars. Selling cars is our core. Giving back to the community has been really important. So we created this thing called Karma, except we spell it CARMA, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things we do is our annual season of giving. For 11 years now, we created a program that allows the community to nominate somebody that they love and care about, and they can win one of three things. So we end up helping three people in the community. One wins a minivan full of toys, and a second family wins either a furnace or a new water heater in their home, also with gifts and toys. And then third family wins food for a year with our partner at Sprouts. It's $400 a month for a year. And that has been so rewarding, creating this program that our team can get behind. This last year, we got over 1,500 nominations and got to do a big party at the car dealership, which was great. But that's been really, really important. Actually, last night, the other thing we do is we're endorsed by Dave Ramsey, and we teach Financial Peace University at our class. And just last night, we graduated another class. And so I was there for the graduation party. And we've graduated over 400 people from Financial Peace University. And we buy the kits and we donate them. We give them away to these folks to come do the class at our dealership. So those are the ways that we give back to our community. And, that in turn comes back to us as more car deals.
Yeah. That's amazing stuff, man. So let me tell you, because, I talked to a lot of dealer principals, a lot of GMs, and some of the stuff that you just named is just totally not even on their radar, and even if someone puts it on their radar, meaning that they listen to a podcast like this and they hear someone like you share what they share, they're like, oh my gosh, how do I get something like that going? How in the world did you create partnerships with, the Dave Ramseys of the world and the Sprouts of the world? I mean, how does something like that even begin to happen?
You got to start. You got to just start somewhere. Here's what I'll tell you. If you're a salesperson and you have an idea to do something, having the idea is really important. But then writing it down, creating some framework around it, then sharing that idea with somebody within the organization that you trust and believe will help you make it bigger. And then before you know it, that idea starts to get legs. And then having the stick-to-itiveness to take it to the next step. And then once you're ready to ask for those partnerships, to look at the vendors that you already do business with and say, hey, I have this idea and I want to do it. And then continuing to think bigger. And, the Season of Giving has taken us 11 years. We've done it for 11 years. And we started off with giving away one minivan with one radio station. Today, we work with 4 of the largest TV and radio stations in the city and give away 3 things to 3 families and have an event that attracts several hundred people. So it's just taken time. What's the definition of an overnight success? Years and years of hard work. So it just takes time, but you gotta have the faith to start and then look forward, move forward.
Man, Danny, listen, ladies and gentlemen, you just heard probably the number one piece of advice on any podcast anywhere. I'm willing to put that on the line because that is absolutely how it works, right? First, the ideas, things are built 3 times. First is mentally, right? Then you got to put it on paper, and then you got to build it physically. Like that's how the world. Man, I ain't gonna get into it. Like they say, the word becoming flesh and all of that good stuff. Man, I'm telling you, that was some phenomenal stuff. So let's talk about some of the mistakes that you watch people make in the industry, or some of the mistakes maybe that you've made in the industry where you say, you know what, we would have done this differently, different things like that. Can you share something like that with the people?
Yeah. When you say that, the first thing that comes to mind is comparing ourselves to somebody else. That's the biggest mistake we've made. Is in the times when business isn't good, when we're sucking and when it's been, hard or brutal or whatever, when we start looking around and saying, well, what are these guys doing and how are they doing it? And we should do what they do and all these types of things. And then you spend all this energy trying to be a carbon copy of somebody else. That's been a mistake. We've been through that. And what I learned is, just like I've had mentors growing up, I've never wanted to be like any one of them. What I figured out is I've picked up on all the cool and awesome things within many of them and then made them my own. And then that's what Country Hill is about. We continue to learn from our peers, but we make them our own. And we make sure that we're doing it from our value system and put our own spin on it. That's been really important. And so it's like getting to last week of the month when sales aren't good and all of a sudden you start fear selling and going back on promises you made with your team and yourself on how you're going to do things just because you need to make a month out of it. Those are the times where you really get to come together and dig a little deeper to identify what's at the core of that problem and work to make sure it doesn't show up the following month.
Wow. Some pretty deep stuff, man. All right, cool. So listen, I want to talk about this because you talk a lot about being different, and you are different in the automotive industry, just like me being blind, being black. Sean always talks about I'm a black blind Jew, right? So being different in the industry, I would have asked this question whether we were 60, 70 years ago, being in the 50s and 60s, what was that like being black, in the industry? Has that affected you? So I want to ask you, Danny, has being gay affected you in the industry? Has it helped you? Has it hurt you? What type of effect has it had on you being in the automotive industry where it's typically male dominated? Has that affected you at all?
Oh, yeah, totally. So, yeah, I mean, it's absolutely affected me. This is an area where I would say I'm very lucky because I have parents who really embrace me and want me to be authentic. I can absolutely tell you without a doubt that me being gay is not my choice. It's just who I am, no different than you being
Right.
African American. So, but my parents have embraced that, and what it's done for me is allowed me to show up authentically. You don't just come out once; you come out every day in different ways. I have a partner, and we have 2 kids together, and so when we're out in public, some people understand, some people don't, but sometimes you just have to come out again and again and again and again.
Right.
And so you get to practice it, right? And you get really good at it. But here's what I'll tell you. The way it served me in business is it's given me this fearlessness to attack problems and attack opportunities that others may see as too hard or too complicated or whatever the excuse they might have. Not me, though, because I want to make sure that I get out there and give it my all.
Wow, that's good stuff, man. And here's what I'll say, because I just spent 3 days at your dealership a couple months ago, and some people know that I was just promoted to be vice president of Dealer Synergy. And I know that it was supposed to be a training for your team, and I hope that I did that. But what people may not know, it was really a training for me. You know how good you'll see 3-day conferences and all of that different type of stuff. That happened just from the time that we spent. It just grew me as a man, right? Because it allowed me to get a lot closer to my heart self, how I spend time with my wife, how I pay attention to her, how I, just spend time with the team, how I, like you said, take on problems like fearlessness. Like people thought that I was fearless before because I can do stuff being blind, but now I'm even less. I don't know what changed. I don't know what switch was flipped, but it was definitely a heart switch. I'm telling you, I felt the difference from spending that time with you, man. And so you made a tremendous difference in not only my life, but everyone who was around me. And I think that is an integral success principle. I mean, you have to have that. You have to be able to speak from the center, your core self, right? So I thought that was awesome, man. I just want to thank you for
Thanks,
that.
LA. I got to tell you, you said that more eloquently than I can put it, but I feel the same about you. I mean, you left, and my whole team, first thing they asked was, when is he coming back?
Oh, man.
So
appreciate it.
You're a rock star, total rock star.
Thanks, man.
So
seriously.
you asked a good question, and I want to tell you one of the ways that I've really owned my sexuality. In town, a friend of mine and a mentor of mine started an organization, a chamber of commerce, focused for the elevation of our community. So we call it MAGLCC, Mid America Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. We have grown that organization to be number 3 in the country, related to 54 other affiliate chambers. And so I'm really proud of that. Like any other minority chamber of commerce, we know that people do business with other people they trust. Mm-hmm. And whether it's the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the African American Chamber of Commerce, the Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, we want to know that we're going to do business with somebody who is going to treat us right, who's not going to talk behind our back,
Mm-hmm.
who's going to fulfill the promise of protecting our investment. And so I have immersed myself in that chamber through hard work, but also through friendships, made my way to a leadership position. And that has also helped me sell a lot of cars. And so I'll tell you, for salespeople listening or managers listening, find your niche. If you're Hispanic and want to get into the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and get in there and network and meet people and show up as the expert in your industry and continue to grow yourself, from a personal development standpoint, I will tell you it's been so helpful for me because it's a way that I've been able to learn from other people and be in the same room with other people that I otherwise wouldn't have had the opportunity to be with.
Wow. Yeah, that's huge, man. Networking, it's always about who you know and who knows you. I do want you to talk about the habits of some of the most successful people in your dealership. What do they do that maybe some of the future superstars haven't quite nailed down yet?
They invest in themselves. I mean, that's the really honest answer. They invest in themselves. They're not waiting on a manager or somebody else or a customer to show up. They invest in themselves. And so they create their own marketing campaigns. They create their own brand, their own vision for how they want to show up for customers. They certainly follow and work with the process of the car dealership, but they're also a part of it. So if there's an issue, they are on the front lines of improving it. So it's like, are you on the defense or are you on the offense, right? Are you a lagging indicator or a leading indicator? And we want to be leading indicators. We want to be the ones that are making the change, not waiting for the change to happen.
Wow. Beautiful stuff. And again, I ask these questions to a lot of people, and I love the different answers that I get. And you just gave somebody, just an extremely powerful nugget right there. So, and I also had a gentleman who told me that he said, but I listen to the podcast. I always listen for those cha-chings, you know what I'm saying? Because I got a little sound effect that I drop. Man, this whole podcast is going to be full of cha-chings, you know what I'm saying?
Thanks. Yeah, well, look, let me tell you this. There's been times in my life when, I have a little voice in my head that says, Danny, do you really want to work this hard? Or Danny, do you really want to, it's like that little fear that talks to you in your head and tells you, you really should be out with your friends right now, or you really should, do you really need the money this bad, or whatever the thing is. And again, it's not about, for me at least, it's not about necessarily the money. The money, I think, follows success. It's about honing your craft. It's about succeeding. It's about giving back. And the way I give back is by being really good at what I do.
Yeah, man, that's huge. And I love what you just said, because a lot of people don't know that our brain has a tendency it wants to keep us safe, right? And so change is new, change is different, it's outside of the quote unquote comfort zone. So, we've all heard seen the memes, and we heard the whole, success begins outside of your comfort zone, all that old stuff, right? But it's so true. It's just, you have to be willing to tell your brain, no, we're going to do something different. We're not going to continue to do, because you don't want the same circumstance, right? And so Sean says all the time, if you want the things that others won't have, you got to be willing to do the things that other people won't do. You got to be different. I love it.
You got it.
So cool, man. So you got a lot of wisdom, right? And this is, really powerful stuff. I don't know if this stuff you were just born with, or do you read a specific book? What books would you recommend our listeners to read in order to pick up some stuff like what you just shared?
I think it's based on personal preference, but I really like Brene Brown. She takes, the big questions in life, and she puts them into a way that I understand. Mm-hmm. So I really appreciate that. Right now, I'm reading a book, and I want to tell you the name of it, but I don't remember. I have to go get it. I mean, I'll just run upstairs and look. Hold on. I think I know it. I just don't want to botch it. Hold on.
It's all good. See, this is the authentic stuff we need on the podcast. Hold on, let me run upstairs and get it.
Yeah, right. The book's called You Are a Badass, How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life by Jen Sincero.
Ooh, I love that book. My wife loves that book. We have the audio book in our Audible account. So absolutely, that's a great one. Man, some of the concepts that she discussed is powerful. So you're absolutely right. I love that book.
Yeah, it's a really
Good
good
stuff.
book.
Let's talk about training, because I did hear you say that that was one of your pillars, right? One of your keys for
Yep.
success in training your team is, training them, right? So what do you recommend that people train on? Maybe how often should you train? Stuff like that.
Yep. So you remember how I told you I'm a millennial operator?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about how millennials are perceived first, and then
Okay.
let's talk about how we engage them. So millennials can be perceived two ways. The baby boomers might look at a millennial and say, well, gosh, they're lazy, or gosh, they are different than me, and they're out exploring the world and they should be at work working and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, I think millennials are some of the best of generations, because they want work-life balance. They want to know that they're doing business not just with a company for their product, but they want to know what that company stands for, what they believe in. So they also engage differently. Text messages, they want video, they want photos, they want to share the products that they're buying or the company they're buying from on social and get feedback from their friend group or from their family before they make a purchase. They want to feel the transaction, not just do the transaction. And that's important because my parents or their parents didn't shop that way, and most often still don't shop that way. They show up to a car dealership, sometimes with some research or sometimes without any research, and look around and try to figure out what the best deal is based on the experience they have. And certainly we still do a lot of selling like that, but a majority of our selling today, consumers are showing up with a lot of work done. And so we do less selling and more helping them finish what they started. And that is a different approach than just waiting for the phone to ring or waiting for a customer to show up on the lot and then working a standardized or old sales process. And so LA, I'll talk to you about that. If I knew you were coming in to look at a BMW I had on the lot, when you came in, I already assume that you have looked at every photo I have, that you've seen YouTube videos on this car, and that you are really excited to see this vehicle. So therefore, in order for me to be valuable, I've got to give you something that you can't get on your own.
Mm-hmm.
That is where I get to shine, because I show you that in the way that I serve you by making sure that the car is ready, making sure that I'm knowledgeable on the vehicle. Number two, telling you about the unique offerings of my car dealership, whether it be a lifetime warranty, whether it be our certification, whether it be free car washes, whether it be premier service pricing. What are the ways I'm going to help you and protect your investment in doing business with us, and not smoke and mirrors, but real stuff. Those are all things you couldn't get on your own. And then fill in the gaps of knowledge that you may have when you have questions around the car.
Absolutely. So I'll tell a story real quick, because I tell the story about how my wife and I bought our vehicle from Texas, right? What most people don't know is that the salesperson actually picked us up from the airport in the vehicle we were going to buy. And then she hopped in the back seat and my wife jumped in, and that was her test drive right from the airport to the dealership. As a matter of fact, from the airport to the bank, because I had to pick up some money, right? and to the dealership. And so again, that's something different. It's the experience you just talked about.
Yep, exactly. He once told me this, and I really like it. He said, we don't see these as challenges because they are our values. And I really like that, because if you do something enough, it's like second nature, right? It's like your value. And in the beginning, it just takes a lot of practice. And so I'm proud to say that we're, in our store, we continue to practice these things so that they are second nature.
Nice. That's what I'm talking about. All right, cool. So tell us this. What do you love about the automotive industry? What's the thing that sets it apart for you that keeps you attracted? We know what made you not be a doctor, right? But what do you love about automotive?
For me, I like being creative, and I like where industry intersects with technology, And there's so much of that in the automotive business, where there's so much technology that we use on a daily basis, from CRMs to advertising techniques to all the software programs that we use, our DMS and so forth. I love all of that, and I love how it intersects process, because I'm a process guy. And then every deal feels like a new adventure. And so I get to meet so many awesome customers from so many walks of life, and get to engage them differently based on their needs and wants. And it's an awesome experience every day.
Yes, absolutely, man. I totally agree with that. And again, that's another one of those questions where it's, I ask a lot of people and everybody has something different, but whenever they give me the answer, I always feel exactly where they're coming from. It's like, it's so true. This is an amazing industry, and I absolutely love it. So just give the people, what is a closing statement, right? Because we've talked about making money. There's nothing wrong with making money. However, in order to do that, you got to focus on success, right? So if you focus on success, then the money just comes to you. It just attracts to you. So what's the closing statement for the Millionaire Car Salesman listeners? What should they know in order to go out and do what they got to do?
Before you know your worth, you have to earn your worth. That's been a lesson for me. Is there, I've certainly met a bunch of people who may consider themselves influencers on social media, but when you meet them in person, there's not a whole lot of depth. And that's because they just haven't lived enough life to experience all the things that it takes to really walk the walk. And that's what I would say about myself. I mean, there's been certainly periods of my life where, and continues to be periods of my life where I encounter a new challenge, and I think I know the answer. But the further along I get onto it, the more I realize I don't know. And then that's when I do what I know to do, which is to find a mentor, find somebody who can teach me how to get to that next level and stretch and grow. And that's what I'm excited about. I enjoy being on shaky ground at moments, because I know that I'm about to learn something.
Yes. Wow, man. Again, cha-ching, right? That's beautiful stuff, because everybody always wants to be safe, man, but that's not where it is. So, wow. So this is absolutely phenomenal. We've been spending some time, and I always say that you are the average of the 5 people who you spend the most time with, and you've just been spending time with Mr. L.A. Dub and my man, Danny Z. Man, listen, it's your turn. You got to go out there and be a millionaire car salesman. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks, Danny, for joining us.
Thank you so much, L.A.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you like it, you love it, you want more of it, then don't wait for the next money show. Just go to bradleyondemand.com and take your career to the next level.